Durant. Count it, and the foul. A 50-point night. Kyrie, a bomb. Straight fire. Irving went around the world. Oh, what a shot. Thompson puts it in. Klay Thompson sizzling. Thompson for three. Bang!
They are NBA royalty, and their names all start with the same letter. We have a poll question up on our Twitter page. Beginning next season, so we understand these guys have all won. Beginning next season, which NBA free agent whose name starts with K will be the first to lead his team to a title? Durant, Klay, Kawhi, Kyrie Irving. Go to Twitter @GetUpESPN and cast your vote. Now, Caron Butler is in with us today. I'm going to run the floor going through all of these guys, and you're going to tell me first and foremost where they're going to wind up. Let's start with Kevin Durant. What team will he be playing for next season?
Well, look, I think if it's not the Golden State Warriors, I think the team that makes the most sense is the Brooklyn Nets or the Los Angeles Clippers. I think that he fits in like a glove in both of those situations. And I think that he can make the seamless transition when you're talking about being a scorer and winning a championship in that small pocket in that time frame.
But so you think it's either Golden State or Brooklyn?
Yes.
That'd be an interesting one because that's not one I feel like I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of the Knicks. I haven't heard a lot of the Nets. Let's get to the next one. His current teammate in Golden State, Klay Thompson, where does he wind up?
I think he will remain with the Golden State Warriors. I think that you cannot tell the story of basketball without mentioning Klay Thompson. When you mention the Golden State Warriors, I think the Splash Brothers are connected hand in hand, and it makes a lot of sense for him to stay there. And I know he's upset with, not being able to get the Supermax, but that's still, he had a ton of success there.
Yeah, a lot of people think he'd be the perfect teammate for LeBron James based on his skill set, but the likelihood is that he stays where he is. Maybe not so much the case for Kawhi Leonard. Where do you think he goes next year?
Hey, look, I think Kawhi Leonard, if he doesn't remains with the Toronto Raptors, we're hearing a lot of rumors that he just bought some real estate. I just bought some real estate in Mississippi, too.
Okay.
I'm not going to be down here, working for Mississippi ABC or something like that. So I will tell you this. I think that it makes a ton of sense that he goes to Los Angeles and join the Los Angeles Clippers.
That has been the belief for quite some time. He's a Southern California guy, and that does feel like the likelihood regardless of whether they win or lose. And then, to me, the most interesting one is Kyrie Irving. Where do you think he's going?
Hey, I will love this one right here, RJ. Check this out. I think that Kyrie Irving will be with the Brooklyn Nets or the Los Angeles Clippers, not Lakers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting because it contradicts what you told us earlier this morning, which is why the screen has it wrong. So let's bring this to the table here because I can't begin to describe. I'm going to die on this hill, okay? This is the hill I've chosen to die on. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, and I'm talking to someone who played with them as teammates, were perfectly suited to play together. Both of them are in terrible situations. LeBron has found himself in LA with a franchise that is now as dysfunctional as any in sports today. Yeah. Kyrie got exactly what he wanted, right? The greener grass of his own team in Boston. And that couldn't have gone significantly worse than it did. These two guys are much better together. I believe Kyrie Irving should, and I think he will, sign in LA to play with LeBron.
See, you think he's going to go to LA. I think that their relationship is probably as good right now as it has been since, Kyrie left. But when you get to a spot where it's just kind of like an ex relationship, we're good right now. We're in a good place. Does that mean that we want to get back together? No, right? And I think that's where they are. They're in a good relationship right now, but them getting back together might not be the best idea.
Can I tell you this?
What?
LeBron and Kyrie need to be friends with benefits. Just being friends is not enough. It's not enough because I tell you what the benefits are. The benefits are a legitimate chance to win a championship. And you put LeBron and Kyrie together, and remember, they don't have to trade anything to get Kyrie. He's a free agent. So you would still have all those good young players the Lakers have. That's a really good team.
I think that was a recipe for success in the Eastern Conference when it was the LeBron James Invitational. But when you look at the Western Conference, it's totally different now. And it's a lot of teams out there that I feel like with that tandem, they still need something else.
Okay, can I choose another hill to die on?
Yes.
The myth of the superiority of the Western Conference it's about enough. I can't take any more of it. The Western Conference is Golden State, and they're obviously unbelievable. If Kevin Durant leaves, they become human. The number 2 seed in the Western Conference this year was Denver. The number 3 seed was Portland, okay? You're going to tell me right now that the best teams in the East outside of Golden State aren't actually the best teams in the league. If you name the 4 or 5 best teams in the NBA this year, almost all of them would come from the Eastern Conference. The notion that the West is so much tougher than the East, in my opinion, is a myth.
Greeny, it is this for this reason. San Antonio was the 7 seed, and they took the 2 seed to 7 games. I'm going to say this. Orlando was not going to take Toronto to 7 games. That's where you get the depth and the strength. It's like when you can go and play, the Lakers ended up being the 11 seed. When you can play the 9, 10, 11, and 12 and lose, any one of those teams can, that's just not the Eastern Conference. And so, yes, the top part is probably, shaded towards more the East, even though there's a ton of free agents. So Kawhi could leave. Jimmy Butler can leave. There's a lot of free agent situations going on in the East that can shift everything. It's just that middle to bottom section that makes it very, very tough.
All right, we're going to get back to that in a minute, but let's go back to the free agency here. If Kawhi goes to the Clippers, do they become, in your view, the team? If you look at, they took Golden State 6. We'll see what winds up happening with Kevin Durant. If Durant is no longer in Golden State and Kawhi goes to the Clippers, do they have a chance to emerge as the team to beat in the West?
I think they're a top 4 seed in the Western Conference, and anything can happen. Kawhi Leonard is the type of player that can go and literally carry you through playoff series. He's just that talented, and we're seeing it on full display. The way that he just dominated in the Eastern Conference, similar to what we've seen in things of the past of LeBron James. So I definitely feel like they're a legitimate threat.
And then, Richard, I have to bring this up.
Please.
I live in New York. I'm surrounded by fans of the New York Knicks, and I hear from them every single day. This city believes they're getting these guys. So we just ran through all of these free agents, and the name New York Knicks did not come up a single time.
Well, you guys also believe that you were going to get the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Right? That didn't go well. And I'll say this. The Knicks they're a better destination than they have been in a while. So Knicks fans should be optimistic. They should be optimistic. But this is the one thing that Knicks fans need to understand.
Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. But there's a lot of other high-level destinations, not only in New York, but also in LA that are trying to get the exact same people.
Only reason I said the whole conversation with the thing about Kyrie going to the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Before, it was John Wall, Kemba Walker. That's the perennial all-stars in that space in the Western Conference. But the Western Conference, you got Steph Curry, Westbrook,
hold that thought a minute. We're going to come back to
Come on, man.
We're going to come back. We're going to come back.
goes on.
By the end of this day, I will explain everything to you that you need to know. I promise. We'll get back to that. But I'm told Jay Will is down to jump in.
Oh, more Jay.
Come on, Jay.
I'm not dying to jump in.
More
RJ, stop complaining all the time.
RJ's going to complain over there, but he can take some deep breaths. We're going to get to your point on the Knicks in a second, but I want to go back to the first hill Greeny was dying on, his friends with benefits hill about LeBron and Kawhi, and Kyrie.
Yeah.
So when you think about this, DJ, and you know these two very well also, is that a possibility? Is that really the hill that Greeny wants to die on?
Well, I don't think so. I'm with RJ. I'm with RJ. I mean, they fit well together and did some special things over the course of the 3 years. We went to the finals, and the tandem was just awesome. But the breakup that they had, it wasn't as bad as publicized, but I don't think they're ready to kiss and make up.
Was the question, is this the hill that Greeny wants to die on? Greeny's been flatlined on that hill for the past year. That ain't happening. It's just not. I saw that breakup was so bad. Granted, and I like what RJ said. Like, they have a good relationship, but that doesn't mean that they have to play together. I think Kyrie's going to go out and do his own thing, find his own path. Let's not forget he was traded to Boston. That wasn't his own selection of where he wants to go. Now he has his fate in his own hands.
Okay, what's your point about the Knicks? Because you have a plan that you think can rehab their image a little bit.
Well, no, it's what can the Knicks sell right now. The Knicks really can't sell winning. I think the Knicks can sell we're all we got. And I think if you sell we're all we got, you do that by making amends. It's about having some housekeeping. I think you have to find a way to make amends with Charles Oakley. That's Uncle Oak. Everybody in the league loves Uncle Oak. And I think if you could find a way to bring him back into the fold, get him involved in players' relations or something to that degree, I think that's a big sign of saying, hey, we're trying to move forward. We're trying to move forward with our own. And this is a culture that we're creating for our own if you want to be a part of what we're building here in New York.
Yeah, I like that. What do you think?
I really like it. And I think Uncle Oak has the ear of a lot of players in the league, and everyone loves him. Like Jay said, Uncle Oak. And once you get around Uncle Oak, it's always a good time.
Yeah, oh, okay then. There we go. Yeah, it is interesting because I think obviously the conversation is so different if the Knicks did get that #1 pick, but the likelihood of that, as we all know, was actually pretty slim, and they didn't end up getting it. They still
You
have
have to market
options.
the culture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to rebuild it.
All right, so we're going to continue on here and plenty more free agency talk to come, but
Here, look at the jam-packed crew. We have working this morning, including the one, the only,
Look
the
so excited to be
legendary.
here, RJ.
Caron Butler is here, everybody.
Tough
What's
juice.
up, man?
Tough juice. Baby.
I'm happy I'm at the barbecue, man.
Watch out for that side of the table. I just want to give you a
dangerous
heads up.
over here.
Yeah.
And we got some arguing to do this morning, and they have some big decisions to make in Oakland today, and that is where we begin. As the Warriors announced last night that Klay Thompson is questionable for Game 3 of the NBA Finals with what is being termed a mild hamstring strain. Sources telling our Adrian Wojnarowski the team is optimistic that Klay will play tomorrow night. He suffered the injury during the fourth quarter of the team's Game 2 win on Sunday night. Now, just how badly do they need him? That's the question, and here is some of the answer. During the finals, Golden State has been 14% less efficient on offense in 25 minutes without Klay Thompson on the floor. He led the Warriors in scoring during Game 2, made 10 contested shots, while his teammates combined to make only 6. And so for more on this, let me bring in our Adrian Wojnarowski. Woj, what more can you tell us about how the Warriors are dealing with Klay's hamstring?
Well, you know, the Warriors know this, and anybody around Klay Thompson knows if there's any chance he can play, he's going to play. And, you know, I was told last night that there was optimism. He's got 2 days here between games to get ready for Wednesday, and he'll rehab whatever he needs to do with that hamstring. But I was told more than one source with the Warriors close to Klay that there's a lot of optimism that he'll be able to play because he always does.
Yeah, you've heard a little, I'm sure they've heard, and certainly we've heard the conversation about does winning Game 2 sort of buy them the opportunity? Now, obviously, you have to sacrifice Game 3, or they would never view it that way, but does it change the mindset a little bit as to how they consider bringing Klay Thompson back?
I don't think it does. I think that ultimately might be more of a question for Kevin Durant's injury, the severity of it and the length he's been out. If they were down 0-2 going home, there would be more pressure to play Kevin Durant. But Klay Thompson, he just plays playoff games. He has played his entire career in them. And, you know, I remember he was walking out of the arena after Game 2 and already was telling people he was starting to feel a little bit better.
All right, well, stand by, because I am going to come back to you on the KD question in just a minute. But let me take it to the table here for the first time this morning, and I will start with you, RJ. As far as the idea that they bought themselves a little bit of breathing room by stealing that Game 2, and in some ways it did feel like they stole it coming from behind as they did. How would you approach this right now as far as Klay with the hamstring?
Well, I think it's up to Klay. You don't want to give away any opportunities to win. Yes, you did buy yourself more time. As this series progressed, there's a better chance of the Warriors becoming whole. So, again, I would say this was a missed opportunity by Toronto, right? No Klay Thompson is very similar to no KD in that Game 6 against Houston. So I just feel like they need to be very, very careful with Klay. But Klay is one of the tougher guys in the NBA, and if he can play, he will.
Jay, Will, you and I were here yesterday talking about this a little bit. Klay took 17 shots before he left that game with 8 minutes left on Sunday. If he is not able to be Klay Thompson in Game 3 on Wednesday night, where do they pick that up?
I sit him. Like, if I'm Steve Kerr, I understand that Klay wants to play. Klay probably will always want to play. That's who Klay Thompson is. But my thing is, if you've had 2 days of rest, pretty much a day and a half after the travel back to the Bay Area, a lot of Klay's game is centered around starting and stopping. It's floating on the baseline, coming off pins. Like, all that stuff can re-aggravate the hamstring. I'd rather have Klay have 4 days of rest than have him come back for Game 4 instead of just try to play him in Game 3. Granted, something happens in Game 3, then he will not play Game 4 or 5.
But let's look at it like this. If they lose without Klay, If they lose game 3, you put yourself in a must-win situation there in game 4. So you're bringing back Klay. We've already talked about, the possibility of KD coming back. There becomes a lot more hypotheticals and scenarios that don't look good for the Warriors if they lose game. Because basketball guys could just say, hey, Toronto, game 4 was just their day.
I understand, but what happens, RJ, if he plays and he tweaks it again? Then he's out game 4 or 5.
But that's also the way. That's just part of the game. Like if he can play and he says he can go, you have to trust Klay in that moment.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm actually on your side on this. Not that
no one is ever on his side.
Not that I'm not delighted to say
you're wrong on that, RJ.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying
you're wrong a lot, by the way.
Depending on the medical piece of this, if giving him a little extra rest would matter, I'll take my chances in any game if I have a healthy Klay and KD, and whatever I have to do to get to that, even if it means sacrificing a battle along the way to win the war, I think I'm willing to do it.
And I agree, but it's the one thing that we do not know is Klay. Klay, if he says he can go, it's like, look, I tweaked it, it felt tight, 2 days of rest, I'm fine, let me go. This is a man that has never missed a playoff game in their 5
It doesn't make it right, though.
I'm just saying,
I understand that. I understand that. It doesn't make it right. You're always going to say you can go. Like, you're a warrior. You're always going to say you can go. My job as a coach, if you're Steve Kerr, is you have to really factor in what's the long-term cost of us doing this right now.
All right, we're not going to reach any consensus over here. Laura, see if you have any better luck over there.
I'm going to try over here with Caron Butler and Damon Jones. I don't know how my luck's going to go. And it is interesting because there are two sides of this, Caron. When you look at the risk that could be taken on both sides, whether you play Klay Thompson or not game 3. I get it. He's going to want to play. He's going to say he's healthy. But another part of this is that he took this long flight. He's going to have been on a plane for a long time. That can affect a hamstring. What would you do if you're Steve Kerr in this situation?
I'm going to have to play the long game, and I'm going to have a conversation with not Klay, but Kevin Durant. I'm going to have to find out if Kevin Durant is going to be available for game 4, and that will make me have like an easier decision on how to deal with Klay Thompson going forward, because I don't want him to be in a situation in which he's forcing it and you're out there in a quarter or two, and then all of a sudden I lose you for the rest of the series, and now I'm not playing with house money no longer. So that's a delicate situation.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the coach's hat because I am a coach, okay? And Greeny, Jay Will, RJ are speaking from players' perspective. I'm speaking strictly from a coach. I'm not giving away any NBA Finals games. I'm trying to get to 4 wins as fast as I can. And if Klay Thompson can play, I'm going to put him in the lineup.
Right, so that's interesting because I don't think the Warriors, even if they don't have Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant for game 3, feel like they're necessarily conceding that game. They still feel like they could win. The chances are lower.
The chances are lower, but at the same time, I mean, you got DeMarcus Cousins back.
Right.
It's not like he's not a perennial all-star.
He is, and I like what he did last game. And Steph Curry, I mean, we know he can do some amazing things, but I'm telling you, your probability for winning without Klay Thompson and without Kevin Durant is on the floor.
But imagine not having him going forward at all if you lose him in a game 3.
But this is what I'm saying, okay? If he's injured, right, or if he's hurt to a point to where he can't play game 3, game 4 is just a day and a half more. So how much healthier is he going to get between game 3 and game 4?
Yeah, there's a quick turnaround with the timing there. And you mentioned Kevin Durant and his part in all of this. Greeny, that's a whole other aspect that really could affect Klay Thompson, too.
Yeah, I want to bring Woj back in on that thought because it feels like all roads are leading back to the Kevin Durant discussion. And Woj, you touched on it briefly. Let's talk about him here now with KD. He hasn't played since May 8th. What are you hearing about when we might see him again?
Well, the Warriors have 1 day of practice before game 3. That's today. And, Steve Kerr has said that it is feasible that Durant could come back and play a game having practice only 1 day. He hasn't been cleared yet to practice. And we'll see whether that happens today or does that happen prior to game 4. But I think with Kevin Durant, I think it's got to be independent of what Klay Thompson is doing. Certainly Kevin Durant has a voice in this, and when he's ready, there's a lot at stake moving forward for him. He's not under contract after this season, and I think they have to treat him independent of whatever Klay is going to do in game 3.
All right, well done, Woj. Thank you very much with that here. I want to bring this back to the table. So many different things about this that I find interesting. One of them, it came up in our meeting this morning. You played in a bunch of NBA finals. How much do teams practice during the NBA finals?
They do not practice at all.
Right.
There's zero practice. So I understand what Steve Kerr is saying.
Well, I wanted that on the table.
Yeah.
But what is that? No, then I don't understand what Steve Kerr is saying. If he's saying he can't play until he has practiced, and you told me this morning, during the NBA finals, teams don't have a practice. They go out, they put a bunch of shots up, they walk through a bunch of whatever their adjustments are, but they aren't actually conducting a practice. So I'm not even sure exactly what they're waiting to see Kevin Durant do.
Well, they're waiting for Kevin Durant to give them the okay, right? Because at the end of the day, this is about Kevin Durant, and they respect his decision. He's doing a lot of stuff with the training staff, but he's also doing things on his own. He wants to make sure that he is 100% right. But more importantly, this is his decision. When he says he's ready, the Warrior team, they're not going to be like, well, we want to see you practice one time. They're not doing 5-on-5 practice.
I was with Kevin on day one before they played Toronto. He said that he's been in his bag a little bit as far as how he can move, but he hasn't been full go yet.
Yeah.
So, look, it comes from the horse's mouth to me. He says that nothing is definite, and nothing has been decided. So my thing is that there's a lot of speculation out here about whether it's game 3 or game 4, 1 day of practice, all this stuff. But it is going to come down to when KD feels like he's ready to go full throttle, then he will come back and play.
You know, full throttle becomes a really complicated issue here because at some point you run out of games.
Yes.
So unless he has a significant risk of injuring himself. Look, I'm not a doctor, but this is not like a knee that might go. It's a strained calf. So if he re-aggravates it or whatever, and it costs him the rest of the series, I would assume he'll be fine next year. I don't think this is a decision that impacts his free agency and all the hundreds of millions of dollars sitting on the other side. So at some point, these are the NBA Finals. If he's going to get back on the floor, he's got to get back out there and play.
Well, yeah, he's definitely going to. Look, Kevin Durant is a competitor. All these guys compete at a very high level. KD is going to come back. It's just a matter of when is that. And by the way, winning a game in Toronto helps that cause.
Yeah.
You know, if they're able to win a game or 2 games in the Bay, it changes it again.
That, and I didn't say that well. I meant, like, I don't know exactly what full throttle means. Like, at some point, you either can play or you can't. And if you can play, you got to get out there and try. There's nothing left to wait for.
When basically he's saying they want to see a practice, they want to know that Kevin Durant feels comfortable, whether he's playing 1-on-1, playing 2-on-2, just running up and down. There's not going to be a 5-on-5 practice. There's not going to be a quote-unquote scrimmage that will happen in the NBA Finals. They just don't have enough bodies and can risk injury of that.
They literally don't have enough bodies. No. I'm not sure they can field a 5-on-5 practice with Golden State right now. So, Laura, once again, we can't come to a consensus here. What can you do?
Yeah, every time I see that video of KD and Clay in the hallway kind of hobbling around, it makes you think you hope they feel better than that. But what's actually at stake here, Caron? Because you brought up some points about the fact that they don't want KD to be a scapegoat if he comes back and doesn't play well or they lose. There's so much more here from a free agency standpoint.
It really is. And the sense of urgency would have heightened if you did not have Klay Thompson even saying that I'm going to be available for game 3.
Yeah.
Now, if you lose him for the foreseeable future going forward, because the hamstring is a tricky thing. You're talking about functional and all these things. That means Kevin Durant, the burner is to his back at that point. He has to come out there and perform at a high rate. 75% Kevin Durant is better than 75-80% of the league. He's a perennial all-star at 75%. Yeah. So I would take a 70% Kevin Durant out there anytime.
And DJ, he's going to make this decision himself, as we've heard everybody say. In fact, we were saying that he'll probably announce it on his own terms, on his own platform, and then Steve Kerr's going to know at the same time that we know.
Yeah, believe that.
Jay will know before anybody.
Yeah, Jay Will might know. But when you look at that from Steve Kerr's standpoint, and you brought this up earlier, Caron, is he going to KD and saying, hey, like, how close are you to figuring this out?
I don't think so. And the practice that I think Steve Kerr is talking about is maybe 3-on-3 with some of the guys that don't play or haven't dressed out in the finals. I think that's the type of practice that he was referring to see if, Kevin can, do some things offensively, move defensively well enough to get out there and play. So at this point, it's all on Kevin Durant. We all hope as players and as coaches that he comes back and he's able to play at his highest level.
And quickly, where's the sense of urgency from your perspective that you think the Warriors have to get him back out there from the standpoint of trying to keep him as free agency is approaching?
Well, I'm under the impression that if you win a championship, why leave? I mean, it's another opportunity to win another championship and add to your legacy of winning 4 championships in a row.
All right, well, plenty more could be discussed about that, and we will do that. More NBA coming up in this hour as Caron will actually tell you where each of the big free agent names will land this offseason. He's got his picks, and speaking of free agents, that actually leads us to our poll question this morning. This is on Twitter, @GetUpESPN, so check it out. Starting next season, the poll question asks, which NBA free agent whose name starts with A will win a first title? Now, or a title first, excuse me. It's funny how they all have K names. Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving. Check that out on Twitter. We'll be updating the results throughout the morning, and we'll let you know what we think as well.